F gang, the murder gang, what? Hey, second shit though.
I was stuck in that thing, I was stuck in that though. I was stuck in on main, I was stuck in on control. Had the strap on my head with an extended clip. Had the strap on my head with an extended clip.
Sí, pero hay que echar a todos los que no viven aquí también. Ahorita les voy a decir a la policía yo que no viven aquí.
54th Street on 83rd Street.
Barrio Mojados.
Barrio Mojados.
Rap news, street politics, best hood channel on YouTube, and we back in South Central, about to dive into a hood that's operating in some of the worst areas on the east side and the west side in LA. We talking about the Wet Town Gang, east side, south side, and west side, Barrio Mojados 13. Now, Wet Town is a hood that a lot of people may not know about, especially outside of California. But this is a section that's involved in a lot of beef with pretty much all of the main South Central barrios that's politicking and controlling a lot of territory in some of the most well-known areas throughout LA.
Still in the hood though, cause I'm a go ho. And I can never leave my hood and go broke. That's what it is, ho. Get a bag, stack it up, get out the way, ho. And get some money low and comprehend, ho. Cause if you can't on being gaining, check the spot, ho. Or hit the blade, ho. And run it up, ho. And touch down low. On being game, touch down low. Get money like low.
Now, Wet Town is a hood that started off in the 70s in the low bottoms. And at this time, the low bottoms was predominantly an African-American section in the city before the Cavy hit and changed everything up. And it was said that some black kids would use racial slurs to some of the Hispanic kids in this area who like to play soccer and really just enjoy themselves in this low bottom area. And them slurs really turned into a dark situation when Barrio Mojados really started wetting people up on the east side and west side of LA. Now, we spoke about the low bottoms a couple times, mostly in the East Side South Central video. Y'all make sure y'all go check that out. But the low bottoms is a small area on the east side of the 110, just south of downtown LA, that's home to about 10 different hoods in 1 square mile, depending on how you really looking at what's considered the low bottoms. Now, some people will say that this 1 square mile stretches between Vernon and Slauson from north to south and central to Alameda, east to west, being home to hoods like Wet Town, Varrio 38th Street, the Pueblos, the 40 Rules, but some will also consider hoods that are west of Central and north of Vernon to also be a part of the low bottoms. Now, south of Vernon is technically gonna be Central Alameda, and north of that, you got historic South Central, and to the west, we got South Park. But depending on how you look at things, a lot of these hoods that's north of Vernon, stretching up to Main Street, like Primera Flats, Eastside 13, 20 Outlaws, Mid-City Stoners, all these hoods up here could also be considered the low bottoms, depending on who's really pushing that line. We see dudes like Chino the P from Barrio Evil all the way up here on 33rd Street pushing the low bottoms. And the Playboys will also bleed past Central going into these low bottoms as well. So really, some can consider everything from Washington to Slauson and Maine to Alameda the low bottom. But again, it's all about who you talking to and where they consider their hood to be. But Barrio Mojados is really gonna operate in the area between Vernon and 55th Street, between Compton Avenue and Central Avenue. And they also gonna go a little bit past Vernon up to about 42nd. Some of the main cliques they got in this section gonna be on 43rd Street, 48th Street, and one of the most deadliest sections over here, 49th Street. But like I said, with them beefing with some of the largest barrios in this section, they beefing over here with Eastside Rabbit Gang, PBS, the Playboys, that's just west of Central from Barrio Mojados. And they gonna have a deadly war with the oldest gang in the low bottoms in Varrio 38th Street, which is really gonna be their primary beef over here in this section.
It's BMS, nigga. Trent. I know where you live, motherfucker. Trampas. Where you from? Fool. You don't bang, right?
I don't bang, motherfucker.
Tramp, say that shit.
Why you want me to say it?
Tramps, nigga. Fuck tramps.
They also gonna be beefing with Florencia, that's right across Compton Avenue from them, by the Pueblos, and F13 has been known to be cool with the Pueblo Bishop Bloods in this section as well. And the Bishops are also gonna be beefing with Barrio Mojados. Now, these dudes also got Crip and Blood beef over here as well. Beefing with the PBS, they've also been known to beef with the Phi Tre Avalons and the 40 Avalons. And because of a heavy war that they have with the Swans in that Florence area that we gonna get to, They also been known to beef with some members of VSOP in the Bloodstone Villains. But the Eastside Rolling 40 Pot rules also overlap this Wet Town section between Vernon and 47. And it's been said that some of them 40 rule members ended up converting into AFC, all for crime bloods across Vernon. And due to AFC and Barrio Mojados having a common enemy in Varrio 38th Street, they've been known to be cool with AFC, despite beefing with other members of VSOP. And AFC is gonna be just east of Hooper from these dudes across Vernon, between Vernon and 41st. But it's a lot of Varrio 38th Street activity that goes on over here, especially on Ascot Avenue. So this is why AFC has been known to be cool with Wet Town.
Yeah, she don't feel my pain. Sometimes I still feel the same. I had to cut it off, I had to switch lanes. All alone when I'm in my zone, I just press decline, yeah, tell her leave me alone. On the road and my mind gone, feeling like I'm trapped in another time zone. Failure ain't an option, gotta get my grind on.
Now, with this being the original first hood foreman, this has historically been known to be their most active section, but they do get cracking over here in this Florence area, right next to the Swans, Main Street, and them 7 Trays, man. This is the second hood that was created, also going by the moniker Wet Town, Southside Barrio Mojados. Now, these dudes gonna share the hood with them 8-4 main streets over here, and they gonna be cool with the main streets. Again, they share common enemies in these Swans. They hood is gonna go from Manchester all the way up to about 76th, in between Broadway and San Pedro. But we know that Broadway Market on Broadway and 76, we know the Swans be right there as well. So the Swans definitely bleed past San Pedro and go to Broadway. So a lot of these hoods is overlapping right here. But they main street over here is gonna be 82nd. These dudes also gonna be on 80th and in the 70s going towards DNA and 7 Tray Gangsters. But this section is really no different from the low bottoms in terms of everything kind of being on top of each other, especially they beef. They over here beefing with the Swans, like we said. They beefing with Southside Carnales. They beefing with Varrio, sir. They beefing with 18th Street Vermont Knowles clique, who's gonna be right across the 110 from them. They beefing with 18th Street Wall Street, who's gonna be just past Manchester. And they've said they have beef with DNA, a hood that's gonna be tight-knit with 7 Tray Gangsters. But I don't know how active that situation is with them and DNA, given the fact that DNA also goes at it with the Swans. And being over there recently, I haven't really seen a lot of whackouts between DNA and Wet Town, even though it's still probably up between them dudes. And the hood that they also beefing with over here that bleeds all the way from their low bottom section to this Florence section is gonna be Florencia 13. And this is just a scope of how big Florencia is. These dudes is going all the way from this section by the Pueblos, pretty much Slauson Avenue and the 50s, all the way down past Manchester by 92nd, where they beefing with Morgantown. So again, this is just to give a scope of how big they enemies are. Florence is 40 blocks, and this is just one of their sections that they controlling in the city. We see Wet Town is not controlling a lot of area, but it says a lot that these dudes is beefing with hoods this big. Even the Swans, they for sure are putting it down on the east side. They've also had another clique over here right behind the Fadu's Hoovers, pressed up against Flower between Fig from 58th to 52nd. This is where they've been known to really get active with Temple Street in this section. Temple Street, 18th Street is also over here on 51st and 54th. Street Villains is in this section. But I'm gonna keep it real. This is one of their sections that's dying down in recent years. It's a lot of competition with 5-5 Bunch right here that they beefing with right across the 110. The Hangout Boys right across Vernon, who's also gonna be beefing with them in the low bottoms. Like I said, Temple Street, 18, and Florencia is gonna be over here by Harvard Park as well. So with them not gaining a lot of traction in this area in the 50s, this is a hood that we see kind of dying down as their third hood in Barrio Mojados. Now they also are up north, man, in Lodi, California. They also got a set up there as well, beefing with Norteños. So these dudes do get cracking, man.
I did my first thing at some niggas right here. Wait till you hear me? Oh, wait till that's why I started doing my shit. Be if some niggas dressing banged out on my hood, niggas, some niggas trying to start some bullshit. Them niggas trying to start something, nigga. We had to show them. We had to let them niggas go. At first, we told them niggas like, yeah, man, y'all can't be kicking it right here with the whoop. Niggas didn't want to go. They kept posting up right here like this was their hood and shit. Then gave them niggas the boot. We're not going for that.
Now in 2008, these dudes was named in the gang injunction that stretched all the way from Washington down to Manchester, covering Florence and the Low Bottoms, along with hoods like AFC, Bloodstone Villains, and the Pueblos. But these dudes were also brought up in an indictment in 2012 with a member from the Mexican Mafia from Dead End Harpies named Danny Roman. Now the Harpies are not far from the Low Bottoms. They occupy a lot of territory just west of the 110, and they coexist with them Westside Rolling 20 Bloods. But just to give you a scope of how things are working over here with these Sureños Varrios, Danny Roman was pretty much in control of all these hoods over here in the Low Bottoms while he was serving a life sentence in Pelican Bay. Now he was of course primarily in control of these Dead End Harpies, but he also spearheaded rent collection from hoods like Varrio 36th Street, Varrio 38th Street, Varrio 39th Street, 5-5 Bunch, Primera Flats, Alley Tiny Criminals, Street Saints, Ghetto Boys, the Playboys, Eastside 13, Loco Park, the Hangout Boys, and of course, Barrio Mojados. Now, you know, the crazy thing is, on the streets, these hoods be beefing with each other. Pretty much all them hoods we named is beefing with each other. But when it comes to them higher ups in the Mexican Mafia, they still follow a strict code and making sure they paying up, and they seemingly are on all one accord when it comes to doing so, making sure that they following that Sureño program. And I would say a top hood that's arguably one of the biggest money makers in this section, as well as controlling one of the largest territories in the Low Bottoms, is gonna be Wet Town's #1 enemy, Varrio 38th Street.
Their target was the 38th Street Gang. Officers staged a major crackdown, arresting suspected gang members for violent crimes, drug trafficking, and extortion.
Now, the key thing is, in that indictment with Roman, a lot of shakedowns and extortions are happening, as well as murders, drug sales, and weapon sales. But the key thing over here in the Low Bottoms is gonna be the Alameda swap meet, which is in Varrio 38th Street hood. That seems to be one of the biggest strongholds in the city. I would say rivaling sections like MacArthur Park and Pico Union, as well as that downtown area, due to this swap meet having a host of vendors and all around sales that come out of it. And it's on Varrio 38th Street to really squeeze these dudes so that money can go up top. And I would say this is probably a main point of contention between three of these hoods that's also surrounding the Alameda swap meet. It's like Varrio 38 got their back against the wall, but they got this Alameda swap meet stronghold, while hoods like F13 and Barrio Mojados are putting pressure on them from the south and to the west. But nonetheless, man, Varrio 38th Street is still controlling all of this shit, as well as a lot of territory in this section, and they are getting cracking. Now, in that indictment, we've seen multiple confidential informants be directed by Roman and his sister to collect payments from both Barrio Mojados and Varrio 38th Street in this section. Also, due to the fact that there's vendors on Central between Vernon and Slauson that also get shook down by Barrio Mojados. And it said that if these vendors are not kicking back, of course, they're gonna be subject to get spanked. And if they choose to go to the folks about getting shook down by any one of these hoods, then they're gonna be subject to getting smoked in this section. And it's really just that simple. And this situation right here is what differentiates Hispanic hoods from black gangs in Los Angeles. The fact that all these dudes can be beefing and still answer to one man shows that the Mexican Mafia kind of put these dudes in gladiator school, so to speak, where truly only the strong survive. These dudes saying you can beef and kill each other all you want. They only want the best of the best, and they want their money. Whoever makes it out of these streets, gets to prison, goes up the hierarchy, whether they doing hits or collecting money, this is what they want. And this is what people mean by structure. But this is what's also led to some gruesome murders between Barrio Mojados and Varrio 38th Street. So February 14th, Valentine's Day 2007, the beef between these two hoods has definitely been ongoing for a long time, but it got cracking right here on 46th. between Hooper and Compton Avenue, where two members named Maniac, Victor Ventura, and Chato, Ivan Cabrera from Wet Town Gang, where seemingly they was driving around their hood and noticed some young dudes hanging out on 46th and Compton. Now it said they rolled up on these dudes and yelled out Wet Town. And it said that an individual from the passenger seat jumped out and started busting at these dudes where they initially didn't hit anybody. And at that point it said Maniac got up close on Ricardo Lizarraga, who was 15 years old at the time, put the pistol to his face and shot him right in the face, killing him right here on 46th and Compton Avenue. Now Ricardo was with two other individuals. One was a 14-year-old by the name of Efren, and another individual who was never named. Now the thing is, Efren and his brother was both from Varrio 38th Street. And it said that Ricardo, of course, guilty by association over here, hanging with members from Varrio 38th Street when Maniac and Chato got up on him on 46. Now, 1 week after a shooting, another dude named Carlos Garcia, also from Barrio Mojados, had went down for a robbery. And on some weird shit out of nowhere, he just give up information saying that Maniac was a part of the murder, saying that Maniac had ran into Garcia and asked him if he heard what happened to that dude that got lit up on 46th Street from Varrio 38th Street. At that point, he ended up giving the detectives the description of the same car that matched the crime, a blue Tahoe. And 12 days after the shooting, they ended up getting up with Efren, the 14-year-old that was with Ricardo when he got killed. Now, he ended up giving a description of the whole situation, but he was scared and really didn't want to talk, and definitely didn't want his statements to get leaked to either his homies or them dudes from Barrio Mojados to make him a target in his section. Again, he's 14 at the time, and the detectives were pulling some wild moves on him, picking him up out of nowhere and bringing him to the courtroom so he can make statements at preliminary hearings and things like that. Now, mind you, even though Efren was only 14, he was straddling the fence, but he had 38th Street tattooed on his chest, and he said that his brother was also for show from 38th Street. So after a while, as he knew detectives wanted him to take the stand and point out Maniac and Chato, he ended up leaving home, man, getting little, and detectives couldn't use him as a witness in the case. Nonetheless, with their homie telling on them and giving up details of the crime, Victor Ventura and Ivan Cabrera was both washed up, with Maniac being sentenced to 40 years to life and Chato being sentenced to 37 years. Now, Maniac is in Delano with, we know, a whole lot of people, and he's not eligible for parole until 2031. Chato is also not eligible for parole until 2031, and he's still sitting down in Lancaster right now. And these face shots and head shots is something that's gonna be a common thing as we go through Barrio Mojados and these Wet Town murders, man. This is really why that Wet Town name is sticking. But Varrio 38th Street is also known to play some dirty ball games with their enemies over here in this section, where it said they ended up having an indictment solely on them, with their lead defendant being a member named Luis Eduardo Orozco. Now, it said these dudes have put in work to the point where they sent 14-year-old girls out to shoot up their enemigos in Wet Town for her initiation. They've also dressed up as FBI agents, kicking people's doors down like it's a raid and shooting up the whole house. But Orozco was also somebody that was named in that Danny Roman indictment as somebody who was collecting taxes for Danny. Orozco was for show a shot caller over here in Varrio 38th Street, and he was the one mainly responsible for making sure everything went off without a hitch in terms of their drug sales and their shakedowns at the Alameda swap meet. Now, of course, due to his action, Luis Orozco was sitting in Calipatria right now on a life without parole sentence. And I'm sure he's heavy into the politics and still programming over here in this section. But we know Danny Roman was killed by his own in 2020 in Corcoran while serving a life sentence and operating at the highest level he possibly could for the Mexican Mafia. Like so many others, they took him out. And he was taken out by two hitmen who, of course, were also serving life sentences under this Sureño program. Now, with that Orozco name, man, there was a murder that happened over here on Christmas Day 2004, where a member from Barrio Mojados named Slow had ran into a dude named Pedro Orozco over here in their Wet Town hood. Now, they ended up considering Orozco to be from Loco Park, which is another large hood in the low bottoms just north of Varrio 38th Street and BMS. But they ended up killing this dude in this section as well. Now, I don't know if Pedro and Luis Orozco have any connection as family or anything like that, but around this time, things was truly heating up between Wet Town and their enemies.
Damn, dog, in the set, 54th Street on 83rd Street.
Barrio Mojados.
Barrio Mojados.
BMS.
On the set. Wow.
So on January 7, 2006, about a year after Orozco was killed, 3 members from Wet Town, Giovanni Rodriguez, William Rosas, and Michael Garcia, were on 46th and Hooper at their homegirl house. And it said at this same time, a dude named Juan Padilla was with 2 females named Denise Rivera and Patricia Quiroa. They also was on 46th and Hooper and just stopped over here looking to buy some weed. As they got their sack, they left off 46 and turned right on Central going up to Vernon. When they got up to Vernon, Garcia, Rosas, and Rodriguez pulled up and lit the car up. At this time, they hit Quiroa in the neck and ended up striking Juan Padilla on the right side of his head, hitting his right temple, killing him right here on the spot on Central and Vernon. This is what I mean by these headshots being an identifying factor of this Wet Town gang. Now, right here on Central and Vernon, between Central and Compton Avenue, they back on 46. This is where a lot of shit is cracking between Varrio 38th Street and Barrio Mojados. But not too long after this, police end up picking up Vanessa Vallejo, who lived on 46th Street. She was also from Barrio Mojados, and this is the female's house that all these dudes was hanging out at. Now, crazy enough, man, the police pick her up for questioning. Automatically, she throw out Michael Garcia and another member named Lil Chino as the ones that committed this slide. And after this interview, they placed her in a cell with one of her homegirls who got up on her for saying, man, why you implement the homies like that? She went on to say that she threw Michael Garcia up under the bus because he had already allegedly snitched on one of their homies from Wet Town, and she threw Lil Chino in there because he was already gone to Mexico. So she was playing her own dirty politic game and implicating Michael Garcia. Mind you, we're already knowing Michael Garcia was allegedly a snitch, so you snitching on a snitch, you should know he gonna snitch on his co-defendants too, in William Rosas and Giovanni Rodriguez. She went on to tell the detectives that Garcia had pulled up to her house in William Rosas's brother Eric's whip, and they was with Giovanni and William. Now, this was 2:30 in the daytime. She said that Garcia saw Juan Padilla getting his sack down the street from his people, and they decided that due to his bald head, they thought he was somebody from Varrio 38th Street. So she said they all jumped in the car with William Rosas driving, Michael Garcia in the back seat. And she said a few minutes after they followed these dudes off 46, she heard gunshots. She said they pulled back up later that night, a couple hours later. Mind you, the scene probably still active. They back on 46. And she said Garcia pulled up with his head down, jumped out saying he fucked up because he thought dude was from 38th Street. Now, I don't know what transpired with Garcia, how he would have figured out that he wasn't from 38th Street. It's not like he jumped out the car and scanned this dude. You know, he was just tripping. But this shows the ruthlessness between Barrio Mojados and Varrio 38th Street. This shows the lengths that they try to go to get at each other. But as everything went down, of course, like they usually do, Vallejo tried to retract her statement, saying that everything she said was a lie. She was high on weed and meth. And mind you, this girl was only 14 years old at the time, so she tried to use that in her defense. But these dudes' fate was already sold up, partially due to an incident that happened a week after this on January 13th, 2006, where Garcia, the female that was in the tank with Vallejo, and another dude from Barrio Mojados named Lil One, was up in Varrio 38th Street hood at Fred Roberts Rec Center, right on 48th Street. it said that Garcia had a bulletproof vest and a 380. Mind you, he also had a 380 in the Juan Padilla murder. Now, with these dudes being in their enemigo hood, somebody allegedly came up and it looked like Michael Garcia was tripping. It was said that somebody disrespected Barrio Mojados and started getting off. Now, I don't know, you got a bulletproof vest and a piece. I don't know why he ain't start getting off, but they ended up running up 48th back towards their hood, where it said that he jumped into Gabriel Manzo's backyard, hiding from this dude. So when Gabriel and his girl got to their house, they see this dude in the backyard. Gabriel like, get out my backyard. Garcia mad that he got to get up out the backyard after running and hiding from them shots. And Garcia and his homie start shooting at Manzo. Manzo wasn't hit by the bullets, but his pants were struck. It was just a luck of the draw for this dude. But he also ended up identifying Michael Garcia as the one responsible for laying in his backyard and then shooting at him when he got kicked out the backyard. But nonetheless, man, Giovanni Rodriguez, William Rosas, and Michael Garcia all went down for the murder of Juan Padilla over here on Central and Vernon, where Giovanni Rodriguez is also in Calipatria, not eligible for parole until January 2030. William Rosas is in Calipatria with him, not eligible until March 2030. And somehow, some way, Michael Ray Garcia is in Lancaster and had a parole hearing where he waived his right for a hearing in 2023 and got another hearing set for June 2026 under the Youth Offender Parole Hearing Program. All these dudes was young when they did this move on Juan Padilla over here in the low bottoms. But as you can see, them and 38th Street got a deadly war, but Barrio Mojados is really looking to get cracking against anybody. Like I said, they got a lot of hoods that they beefing with over here, and some of the biggest. Now over here in this Florence section of Wet Town, where they sharing their hood with the A4 Mains, smashed up against 18th Street, Southside Carnales, and the Swans, it's also jumping in this section. Now with the Swans, man, it's really cracking in this area, man. They done lost a homie named Peanut, seemingly over here on 89th and Central. This section has been nothing to play with for a long time, but again, right here, it's heating up. And you know, this isn't just a Mexican and black thing in this area. Like we spoke on when we touched on the Kitchens beefing with the Swans and shit in this area. Both of these hoods share their hood with Florencia. Right over here with the Swans paying respects to their homies on 89th and Central, we also see Morgantown Watts and Florencia beefing with each other on the same wall, but not whacking out the Swans over here. So it's not really a race war that's jumping off like some may suspect between these hoods over here. But like we said, Wet Town is beefing with F13, the Swans, the Carnales, Main Street, 18th Street, and 7 Trey DNA in this section. Now we seen recently a bloody scene in Southside Carnales hood where 2 men was killed right across from the station on 77th and Broadway, pretty much in the main spot where Carnales kick it at, which is equally not far from DNA and Barrio Mojados. So we can't say exactly who's doing that, but Carnales is a hood that Barrio Mojados is really going at it with. Now the 7 Trey DNAs, which is a Sureño hood, is gonna have a special situation over here with 7 Trey Gangsta Crip. I would say the DNA's main beef is gonna be right across Florence with Southside Endo 13. But the DNA's is gonna be clicked up with the 7 Trey gangsters over here. And something we see with these East Side gangster hoods, like this one on 73rd and another one on 110th, on the same block, they got a Crip hood and a Sureño hood. Just like 110th, 10 line gangster Crips, they got DS line Watts. And the funny thing is, man, we done seen 10 line gangsters over here with the 7 Trey gangsters, also whacking out the Swans. So I don't really believe that 7 Trey gangsters really beefing with Barrio Mojados like that, because it seemed like everybody right here, other than Florencia, is looking to get cracking against the Swans. And DNA looking to get cracking with Endo and Carnales, which is to the north and the south of them. But the thing that just fucks everything up is when 18th Street get in the mix over here. Now, like I said, 18th Street, their Vermont Nose section, is a hood that they share with the 7-4 8 Trey and 9 Deuce Hoovers. And it's a large section that they controlling as well. And they also got, like I said, the Wall Street clique in between Manchester and 92nd, going from Maine to San Pedro, which is just across Manchester from Wettown.
Stop. You don't fucking I get my key. Come in. I'm leaving.
But around that same time that BMS was getting cracking in the low bottoms, 18th Street over here trying to get cracking on Wettown, where it was said that in 2006, 2 members from 18th Street named Freddie Fernandez and Reyes Perez slid through Barrio Mojados hood. And they could have been from either one of these 18th Street hoods, Wall Street or this Vermont Nose section. Both of them is honestly equally close. But at about 3 in the morning, these dudes slide up to 82nd. Like I said, 82nd is the main street over here in this Wettown Florence section. And 2 females, Kavia Washington and Yokina Washington, was driving a van right here on 82nd at 3 in the morning. Now they saw a van coming and they tried to go to the right to let the van pass. As the van went by, Reyes Perez comes out the van with the pistol and starts popping at both of these females at 3 in the morning in this Barrio Mojados hood. Luckily, Yokina was missed, but Kavia Washington was shot in the leg. At this point, these 2 women drove to 82nd and Broadway, where they stopped the police officer again. 77 station is 5 blocks up. And while they were reporting this incident to the officer, they see this same van slide by them. So at this point, it's on. The chase gets cracking down Broadway, and the airship come out. But it seemed like these 2 dudes from 18th Street didn't want to do too much. They ended up aborting the mission, man, and just pulling over and going down for trying to catch somebody from Barrio Mojados. Both of these dudes was drunk, late night sliding, and luckily shit didn't end up too bad, even though somebody did get hit. Now it said that Reyes Perez was the gunman on this. He's in Calipatria right now. Again, this happened in 2006, so he's eligible for parole in 3 years, November 2028. And this crimey, Freddie Fernandez, is in Salinas right now, also up for parole in 2028. This is just showing the type of enemies that Barrio Mojados is having right now. Again, some of the largest, most dangerous hoods and hoods that ring bells. 18th Street, Florencia, Varrio 38th Street, Playboys, the Swans. These dudes got some heavy activity to get into. But like I said, they also have a third section over here in them Westside 50s, where they were sharing this territory with them 5 Deuce Hoovers, another 18th Street hood, whose main cliques was on 51st, 54th, and the Tiny Winos, and one of their main enemies that they was going at it with in this section, Westside Temple Street, who's on 52nd, also with them 5 Deuce Hoovers, man. The crazy thing is, a lot of people may not know Temple Street was even in this section, but they are over here in the 50s, even still to this day, where they beefing with 18th Street and street villains in this section.
Cause niggas not outside. Tell him, blood gang.
Niggas not
Tell
outside.
him, blood gang.
They homies niggas outside.
Yeah, nigga, y'all not outside, nigga.
Blood gang.
Stop saying y'all outside, gang. They know y'all ain't outside. Gang, you already know, nigga. 77 shit, nigga. Go crack, max.
But at this time, in July 2009, like we said today, this Barrio Mojados section, they not really there, but in 2009, they was full-fledged cracking. And it said that a dude named Ivan Valencia had moved from East LA to a house on 55th Street in between Hoover and Fig. Now, Ivan had called one of his homies over there on the morning of July 17th, 2009, so they can make deliveries in their truck, make some little money for the day. He called over Juan Gonzalez. Coincidentally enough, both of these dudes was from Temple Street. But like I said, Ivan that came from East LA. I don't know if they was from the 50s or from the East Hollywood Temple Street, but either way, they found home next to their hood over here in the 50s. Now, when Juan Gonzalez got over there, Ivan Valencia had stepped out on the porch with him and pointed down the street to a white car and told his homie that that's a dude that he'd been beefing with from Barrio Mojados. Now, it seemed like Juan didn't really pay it no mind, so these dudes just hopped in the truck and ended up going west on 55th. As they turned right on Hoover and then west on 54th, Valencia said he wanted to stop for food, but couldn't find a parking space. So they continued driving, headed to the east side now, down 54th, which connects under the 110 to the east side, where they got to Main Street. Now, apparently when he pointed out that white car to his homie, he was spotted by a dude from Wet Town named Jose Antonio Lamelli. Lamelli had been following them this whole time, every corner they bent, until they got to 54th and Main, over here in South Park, right at the borderline of the Low Bottoms. Now, as they was bending on Main, the white car drove past, yelled out the hood, and Gonzalez slammed on the brakes when the car cut him off. Valencia then told Gonzalez to get down. That's the dude from Barrio Mojados. And at that point, 4 or 5 shots led off into the truck that these Temple Street members was in. When Gonzalez heard the car speed off, he looked up and noted that Valencia was bleeding from the back of his head and blood was coming out of his mouth. Another headshot from the Wet Town gang. And sadly, 30-year-old Ivan Valencia lost his life right here in South Park. Now, with a bullet entering the left side of his head, perforating his brain, Ivan died on the spot. And we know this was a hot time in the city. This was April, already homicide number 160. But it didn't take long to solve this case. Some may say it was a gift to Gonzalez that Ivan Valencia pointed out the white car before they set off for that day. Because all he had to do was tell the police about the whole situation that was broken down to him that resulted in Ivan getting killed. And with Temple Street being the main rival of Barrio Mojados since the 90s, it wasn't a mystery as to who did it in this section. And it was said that that beef had started because Temple Street was starting to move into Barrio Mojados section over here in the 50s. But like I said, as today, Temple Street is still in this area low-key. I didn't see none of Barrio Mojados when sliding through their hood on the west side. But police ended up picking up Wet Town member Jose Antonio Lamelli and sticking him with a 75-year-to-life sentence, where he's currently in high desert right now, not eligible for parole until 2033, man. So as you can see, Wet Town don't get a lot of coverage in the media. And again, you may not hear about these dudes outside of LA, but they getting cracking in the Low Bottoms, on the east side, and they've known to get cracking on the west side and up north. But you know, rest in peace to everybody that's lost their life to this gang violence in the city, man. And I would say as of today, you for sure gotta stay out the 80s, man. Stay off of 89th and Central, McKinley, the Avalon Gardens, this Barrio Mojados hood, the Swans, the main streets is going up in this area, man. So y'all make sure y'all stay safe. And if you ain't got no business being over here, don't go over there, man. Rap News, Street Politics, the best hood channel on YouTube. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. And we gonna keep coming with some more heat.